Welcome to Rising Woman Leaders, a safe space for women to thrive in community where their voices and stories are heard. We're a sisterhood supporting each other to live our dreams and embody the sacred feminine to restore balance on our planet. Join us each week as we return to the unconditional love and guidance of our heart and our womb. I'm your host, Meredith Ram, and I invite you to walk this path of beauty, devotion, and service with us. The Way of the Priestess is beginning this September 18th, 2026. This is a full year and a day mystery school and woman circle facilitation training. If you feel called to the priestess path, chances are you have walked this path for many lifetimes. For some, a priestess serves as a space holder, a leader of a movement, and one of the highest service to the greater whole. But an even more simple definition is someone who is serving as a vessel of the divine, who's opening to receive the divine guidance and wisdom, letting that move through her, becoming the frequency of love, and then moving her energy out into the world to be of service in all the ways she feels called. This program will guide you through a series of rituals and initiations, marking entrance into a new way of being. We'll immerse ourselves in the ancient knowledge of those who came before us, walking a sacred path of beauty, devotion, and service. We'll join together to reveal these deeper meaning of existence, the anchor into our living embodiment of love, to be of service to our planet and future generations. So this program is both focused on self-healing and personal spiritual growth, as well as training for facilitation and space holding. We'll be creating a safe and sacred space, joining together in a very beautiful sisterhood over a year and a day. To learn more, visit meredithram.com/priestess. And I would love to connect with you, even an opportunity to speak on the phone with me to learn more, as well as download the program guide. So I hope you enjoy today's show, and maybe I'll see you this September in the Way of the Priestess. I'm here today with Audrey Sutton Mills. She is a self-love teacher, intuitive guide, and mindfulness instructor who supports women in quieting the inner critic and reconnecting with their inner wisdom through writing, teaching, podcast, and transformational experiences. She just wrote her first book, The Itty Bitty Shitty Committee. I love that. 5 self-love tools to silence your inner critic and reclaim your worth. So welcome.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. This is such a joy.
Yeah. We were just talking about your book before you came on, and yeah, I wonder if you want to show it to us, and also just how was that journey of publishing a book? I would love to hear just how it feels
Yeah.
now. Was this like many years in the making?
Oh my gosh, this was so many. So here's the book for those of you who are watching. It's
Yeah.
Quiet the Itty Bitty Shitty Committee. And this book, it took over a decade. And it was a different title, which now is going to be the next title. It's called Blissful Bitch. And so it was that in the beginning. And then, like our journeys of life, they never are linear. They're never straightforward and the golden path. They take different weaves and turns and valleys and pauses. So that's what this book was. But I find that it's 5 self-love tools. And in the book, I share a personal story and then the tool. So it's called the 5 C's. And each of those stories, some of these tools have helped carry me through those personal transitions. So, like when my dad died 2 weeks before my first daughter was born, the tool of curiosity, of stepping into the unknown and trusting the path rather than controlling it and white knuckling it, helped me through that transition. And of course, on a personal note, is just writing the book was healing. So it's hard to let go of the attachment of the impact, but really the writing of it was the healing journey. And then now that it's out into the world, um, I just let it go. I let it go and trust the ripple effect that it will and already has been taking.
So beautiful. It is. It's kind of like all this steady work. You're climbing the mountain and getting to the top, and then eventually it's just release. So
Yeah.
I haven't talked to you much about my book publishing journey, but I published a memoir in 2017, and it
Yes.
was 7 years from idea
Mhm.
to publication. And sometimes things just take time like that. So I'm always very
They
excited
do.
to hear when another sister
Well, and
climbs to the
especially
top of
when
that
you're
mountain.
doing something really personal, right? You're writing a memoir,
Yeah.
and mine was it is part memoir and self-help. And so I just remember one of my girlfriends who is a best-selling author, not at the time, but 15 years ago when I started thinking about this book and I'm like, oh, book is about relationships. It is not about relationships, but the first book was. And she's like, well, you're going to be able to write it when you're actually doing it. And I was
Mm.
like, hey, but it's the truth. It's like you got to live it and then you're embodying it and then you can share it, from that place of truth, of love, of detachment, you know? And
Yes.
so that's what this book is. It's like what I hope for this book is like a guidebook for women to heal, to know themselves, to love themselves unconditionally, and to keep returning to this book as a guide. These are 5 self-love tools that you can pull out anytime, whenever you need it. And I find at different seasons they're helpful. So
Yes. Well, tell us more. What is the Itty Bitty Shitty Committee and how do we start to silence it?
I don't think it ever goes away. So that itty bitty shitty committee is our inner critic. It's the ego. It's the part of ourselves that doubts, that compares, that judges, that shames, that sabotages the very things we desire. I believe that we are born with this beautiful, radiant light within us, and yet life covers it up. Whether it's circumstances that happen to us, disappointments, heartbreaks, failures, all these layers that cover up our light, and then we forget who we truly are. And so I hope that this book, the tools in here start to uncover it. But the itty bitty shitty committee are those parts of the layers. So it might be external layers that happen on us, circumstances, etc. But we also have these internal layers of muck that cover up our light through our own mistrust, our own self-doubt, our own fears, our shame, the control. And so the inner critic is all these different voices, and we all have an inner critic. Some are louder than others, but I call it a committee because we have these different parts of ourselves that sabotage who we are, our truth. And so this book is all about one, consciousness is the first tool, it's the first 5C. So, consciousness, to notice the difference in the voices, to notice the difference in the inner critic voice that is really loud and shouts and nags and judges, and then notice the voice of our true self, our heart, our soul that whispers. And it's always simple and truthful and loving. And
Mm.
so, when we can start to decipher where we are physically, energetically, mentally, we can notice, oh, I've aligned with the inner critic. And then I give you practices and tools to realign with the true self. And then the rest of the book, the rest of the 5 C's are caring for our inner child, compassion for all of our shadow parts, curiosity of the unknown, and then connection to your truest, freest self.
Mm. I love that. Um,
Thank you.
so those are the 5 self-love tools, those 5
Yeah.
C's. That's
Yeah.
beautiful,
Yeah.
you. Can you tell us maybe one of the stories to give us like a little window into the book and like how you used the tool and yeah, how it
Yes.
supported you?
This book is really vulnerable. So, Meredith, I put it out there on May 1st, and then the very next day I had like high anxiety. Just like my hands were shaking, my armpits were sweating. I mean, I couldn't really function like the next morning because it is very vulnerable. I'm sharing a lot of very vulnerable stories, from my dad's death to motherhood to divorce, But one of the stories that I'll share, because I think probably your audience, we're both mothers, perhaps your community will resonate with this, is the second tool, which is caring for our inner child, and why this work is so important. I start off with sharing a story about my dad, how he he was my world, and yet at age 7, I kind of felt this love being conditional. I had to be a certain way, I had to apologize, I had to watch my tone. And these aren't major things, they're not traumatic, but to a little child, it is, right? It makes an impression, and it molds us into how we are and who we think we need to be. And so I go through that little story, and then why inner child work matters, and healing and caring for our inner child matters. And then at the end of that chapter, I talk about my daughter. And at that time, I was just so triggered by her. I mean, she was 2.5. She's very fiery. She's a Scorpio. She knows who she is. I mean, girlfriend knows who she is, and she knows what she wants. And at 2 years old, I remember her, everything would be like, I do it myself. You're like,
Yes.
oh, okay. Like, I love being a mother. And there was a moment where I was breastfeeding my second child, to my baby, and I was looking across the hall. I was in tears. She was glaring at me in tears. And I just remember, like, this is not the mother I want to be. Like, just stressed out, wishing I was somebody else somewhere else. And it comes full circle with a not so pretty moment of myself. But again, I feel like being vulnerable and sharing our scars, those lessons that we've learned, help other people to, one, put down their own shame, and see that we're really human. We're just human living this spiritual world, the spiritual life, but we're really human with our mistakes, and then we learn from those mistakes. And so at the end of that chapter, I have this moment where I just kind of blow up on my daughter, and this rage comes with it out me, and I can see that this rage isn't new, it's passed down generation after generation. And that's the beauty of inner child work, or this one tool that I teach, is when we can see that this was inherited, this rage, this way of being, this belief about ourselves, a behavior or a pattern, then we can look at what is learned can be unlearned, and what is passed down can be put down. And that was that moment where I'm like, oh, the anger that I felt in that moment, the rage that scared me and my daughter, was passed down from my dad, who had a great heart, but he had anger and rage from his father, and so on. And that's the really beautiful thing about this work, is we could stop the cycle. We could be the generation breaker,
Yes.
and do it differently.
Yes.
And so it was only through that inner child work is I could see that she was worn out, I was run down, and then I heard my inner child say, like, see her, accept her, be with her. And then the inner child shared its wisdom with me, saying, you're overextended. Like, you need rest. Be gentle with yourself too. And it
Yeah.
was just this whole shifting moment where I went from like uncontrollable rage, like some negative entity took over my body. I was in a different room. I had to leave the room. And um, to this little wisdom of the heart, where our inner child lives. So,
Yes.
yeah.
I
But
love
it's like
that.
that. So every chapter is that of there's a personal story, but then we bring it back to you, the reader, and then how we can move through it. And hopefully it's like entertaining. And, one of the readers reached out to me last week, and she was like, snot bubbles, your whole book. I was in snot bubbles. Like, I was crying one moment and then laughing another. I'm like, I love that. That's exactly what I would want. I wouldn't be able to like express it that way, but I love like snot bubbles. That's my book in a nutshell.
Yes. Oh, I love that. What a great review.
I know, great review. I was like, keep it. Yes.
Oh, I have to tell you this story of being with my daughter the other day. She was, she came in for breakfast, and it was just like woke up on the wrong side of the bed type of day. Everything was wrong. And
Hmm.
she is just, the pancake is wrong, the butter is wrong, it's cut the wrong way, just everything. She's going
Oh,
off.
yeah.
And my daughter's also very fiery, which is kind of funny, as a very, my husband and I are so gentle and soft, and she is just like coming in with the fire.
Hmm.
And so she was acting this way, being kind of mean to everyone. She's 4, so she has permission. But um, a few minutes later, she kind of runs away to the room to cry because something wasn't right. I think it was the pancake. And we just kind of, okay, she's going to do her thing. And she comes back a minute later and she said, Mommy, I feel bad. And she just like reached out for a hug. And it
Oh,
was
that's so
just
great.
like, wow. The reason she was treating everyone around her so badly, so poorly, was just simply that she was feeling bad. And
Hmm.
sure enough, later that day, she did end up coming down with a fever. And it was just
Oh,
such a awareness moment of all these people in the world who were being mean, being critical. Uh, it's like we don't have that ability to just say, I'm feeling bad and therefore
hmm.
I'm treating you badly. And can I
Yes.
have what I really need is a hug? And I just thought that
Yeah.
was so beautiful for her to like have that awareness and to ask for what she needed.
Mhm.
But
Well, and also take a moment to celebrate yourself too, Mama, because it's because of you that she can do that,
yeah.
right?
Hmm.
Because and I write about my book is most of us were raised in behavior-based parenting. Dr. Becky Kennedy, if you follow her, I love her.
Yeah.
She talks about behavioral based parenting is I see a behavior that triggers something in me that I don't like as a parent, and so I'm going to correct or control the behavior. And oftentimes it's not because of force, but because it feels uncomfortable for me.
Yeah.
So, for example, you could have said if she's like, my kids would say all the time, this food is yucky, this food is poo poo, and you're like, okay, that hurts my feelings. I worked really hard on dinner,
Yeah.
and they're like, yucky, and so we have to work on like, okay, that hurts my feelings. Can you say it a little nicer? Like, is, is it my favorite? And then that's that. And
Or
so
no, thank you.
right. But again, kids were cavemen up into the
Yeah.
age of 5, But what could have happened is a parent who would see that and try to correct that behavior, you know? Like
Mhm.
you're being disrespectful. No, you have to say this, right? Or go to your room,
Yeah.
anger or shutting them away or just ignoring it altogether. Like, I can't deal with you. I mean, these are a lot of ways that, I don't know about you, but like, and I have wonderful parents, but they still again didn't have the tools, and so we learn uh, we learn how to parent from our parents, how they parented, right? Unless we choose a different way. And so you could have treated that in a different way that would have triggered a different behavior. But because you held space for it, you didn't judge it. She went away. How mature of her to do that, to go away instead of just blowing up and continue exploding, in the kitchen floor. She went away to take some space and then she recognized that she felt bad and she can come back and express that. But it's because you've allowed her to express it without judgment, to be there instead of controlling it. And that is really what care is all about, right? At some point, of course, we have to help our child down their path. We're going to teach them manners, we're going to teach them how to be, but oftentimes it's the space that we hold for them, the way that we see them, that helps them move through it.
Yes.
Mm.
And I wanted to loop back around to the breaking of the ancestral cycles, which is something I see all the time in my work with clients when we go to a childhood memory
Mm-hmm.
that needs love and healing. If we go back into the lineage, we just start to see, oh, and that happened to their mom or their dad, and that happened
Yes.
to their mom and their dad, and and it just keeps going back. And um, I notice that it seems like awareness is really the first step, being able to notice the pattern, being able to kind of watch yourself in it, step outside of it.
Mm-hmm.
I imagine that meditation really helped you come to that awareness space, but I'd love to hear more about your relationship to creating that kind of awareness and like what has supported you. Would you say is meditation or anything?
Yeah, all of the tools that I write about has supported me on different journeys, but this book I scrapped a couple times and then really scrapped it for a couple years because I was in postpartum depression after my second child, and I just had no time to meditate. I was so far from myself, so disconnected. And for any women and moms out there who have felt that, where you're so far from who you want to be, um, the thing that helped me close that gap was meditation. And I know people are probably rolling their eyes, being like, oh, okay, because I remember people be like, oh, just go work out. I'm like, I don't have time to work out. I don't have the capacity or energy to work out or meditate. And it literally started with locking myself in the bathroom for a few minutes while my toddler banged on the door. And in those moments, I just took a couple of breaths to gather, collect myself, and then come back out. And then those little moments turned into 5 minutes. And then, as the kids started sleeping more, turned into longer 10 minutes because I felt myself coming back home just slowly. So it wasn't this aha moment, but little by little, I started coming back through quieting in that sacred stillness. And then I began to journal every day, and that journaling got me to come back to writing the book. And then through the writing of the book was that bigger healing journey of telling the story and really seeing yourself and learning the lessons. Because, like you said, awareness is the first agent of change. So, when we're aware of the pattern, we can start to shift and change it. And that's the first self love tool is consciousness. So when we're conscious of which voice we're listening to, we can change our actions, change our beliefs to align with who we really want to be, who we really are already are. So yes, it definitely starts with awareness. And now, and this as a priestess, like finding the connection to sacred is really important because our minds are so busy. And so we need those times for ourselves to and not just fill up our cup, but to see the bigger picture of life, to remember that we are a part of this big magic, that we are a part of this rhythm of life and we are an essential movement to this dance called life. But the ego, the itty bitty shitty committee, puts these blinders on us, right? It narrows our vision and it becomes really self centered. It keeps us in that scarcity place of fear and doubt and comparison. And really, it's that all that muck that's covering up our light that we have to pull and peel back to like see a grander picture of life and of ourselves. And that's honestly what this book is. It's really a sacred remembering of all that you already are.
That we're so connected and
Yeah.
not alone. And
Mhm.
yeah, connected to that higher source. I don't know what I would do if I didn't have that in my life. It's just,
Well, it
it,
feels
it-
lonely. I mean,
yeah.
I know because I didn't have it,
Mm,
and I share at the beginning of the book, I share a pretty vulnerable story about my first marriage of divorce. I didn't have it then when I had a company of 100 people and, I was working in Silicon Valley and very busy, very successful, but dying on the inside. And then I felt it again going through postpartum depression. You feel really lonely. And this is the work. We didn't choose to be humans for this golden path. We chose to be humans to experience everything, the heartache and, the joy, all of it. Right. And then when we can see that all of it is you, then we can actually let go of that control and step back and surrender and flow with that. But it's hard to trust it if you're listening to the inner critic.
oh, wow. I want to hear about, if we have time, at least a little bit about both of these big turning points in your life. Maybe just starting with working in Silicon Valley and then going through a divorce. It sounds like you had to change your whole life around. Was the divorce the wake up, or was there something else that catalyzed a big change in your life?
Yeah, I think people who are listening to this can resonate. Our world is really busy, especially right now. Our phones, our emails, the dings, the social media, everything's calling for our attention, let alone the people in our life, our roles and responsibilities. At that time, I was married, I didn't have kids, but I had a real estate company, 8 offices, 100 plus employees. I was just turned 30 and I was at the top of my game. This is what I had worked so hard to be. But then I realized I was just on the wrong wall. I climbed the ladder, but I'm not in the right place. And I think many people can resonate with this. We do what we think we're supposed to do, and yet it doesn't fulfill us because we're not listening to our heart. We're not listening to our soul's calling. We're listening to our ego's calling, or the itty bitty shitty committee that's like, oh, you should do this. If you do this, then you'll be happy. Or if you make a lot of money, you're not listening to the heart's calling. So yes, that breakdown was definitely a breakthrough. It wasn't fast for me. It was very choppy and messy, but that's also where these five self-love tools came in little by little over the years. As I learned them, I would teach them, and then they eventually came into this book. So it all happens. I know everyone says it happens for a reason, but we might not know it in that moment, but we can know that there at least is a lesson there for us to learn. Whatever threshold you're going through, there's something here for us to know and learn about ourselves, to go deeper into ourselves.
Yes. Wow. And postpartum depression, I'm curious more about how you found yourself again and moving through that, coming back to yourself. It sounds like you had your kids pretty close in age too. So I wonder if it was the postpartum depression maybe didn't have a chance to start as much and then it compounded, or if you had it with both children. I'd love to hear a little
Well,
bit.
I think it's a bunch of things. I'm 47, and more people are having babies in their 40s than their 20s. And so, most people are, maybe 30s or whatever. But I've learned just recently is perimenopause is starts 10 years before actually menopause happens. So menopause is like 45 to like 55. So if you go 10 years prior, that's 35 to 45. So many of us have a baby and like we're hormonal in our postpartum, but we also might be starting perimenopause. So I think that overlapped, which isn't fun hormonally, just this wild roller coaster in your body. Um, and then a bunch of other things. Like we had just bought a house, we were remodeling at the same time I had a second child. So my husband was here fixing this house while I was at the other house tending to two kids, so just a lot of transitions. Um, but I think, like, for anybody who's listening, if you're going through a transition, there's something to learn here. My lesson was I was resisting. I was resisting the season of motherhood. In my head, I kept saying, oh, but I should be somewhere else. I was watching those moms on Instagram bake those dang sourdough breads from scratch and with her cute top knots. And I'm like, oh, but I should be like that mom who's got her stuff together. But I didn't. I could barely take a shower each day, and I was drowning. And so that's where the itty bitty shitty committee comes in. And it's not nice, right? Because it just nags on you and pokes you and it berates you and it makes you feel like crap when what you really need is love, And it was really only until I started writing that I could see this clearly, and then meditating again to like create space from the mind to be more aware and conscious of that voice. And then as I started doing that, that's when new lessons started to come through. But I was still resisting the season of motherhood for like 2 years, So by resisting what is, it kept me stuck in the suffering, right? If I
Yeah.
had just accepted, oh, wait, Audrey, all the things that you used to do, like your soul school program, you aren't able to do it right now. Energetically, you're spent. I've got a toddler who really was high emotions and very demanding. And then I had a baby who needed physical attention every week. He wasn't walking, um, he wasn't crawling. I mean, it was pretty scary. So there was like a lot of different dynamics in play that now stepping back, looking at it, I could say, oh, like you had to be right here. Like actually motherhood was the lesson, you know? Not I should be here in my career. I should keep going here. I should be baking bread. It wasn't that. It was be right here for these two kids and learn what you're supposed to learn in this season. And
Yes.
and finally when I could accept that of being like, oh, I'm a mother. I'm in the season of motherhood. What am I here to learn? That's when things actually started to open up. The space started to open up, you know.
Yes.
Hard though.
Yeah. Yeah. It's humbling. I
Uh-huh.
remember looking forward to the break from my work when I was first becoming a mother. And then when I was a couple months into being a mother, realizing the immense ego loss of
Hmm.
who am I now? Who am I without that? Like, I
Yep.
mean, I'm just with this child. And that was really humbling to see, wow, even the beautiful spiritual work I was doing in the world, it's a
Uh-huh.
little bit of a ego boost or a little bit of like an identity. Like this is
For
who I am and
sure.
this is what I do and how I help. And just losing that for a while and
Hmm.
kind of allowing like the butterfly having to totally like deconstruct and metamorphosize into something new. It
Yeah.
was definitely a journey that took several years. And
It's
yeah,
tough because, it's natural to identify with who we are in the world, right? Who are
right.
we? And it's like, okay, we are our roles. But then it's like you strip that down and it's like, okay, but and this you could also talk to mothers who their babies are off into the world going off to college or something. Like they're also having that shedding identity shift of like, okay, who am I? And
Yeah.
that's why I believe, and you do a lot of spiritual work too, like that's why we really have to hone in on who you are as your soul,
Yeah.
right? And we have to connect to that every day. And once we see that, then all of it becomes really an illusion, the conditions of our mind, the fear, the attachment. And it's not like that ever goes away because we're human. As long as we're human, we will always have the conditioned mind. We always have the inner critic. We're always going to have fear and doubt, and yet with this consciousness, with this knowing and self love, we can come back to ourselves quicker,
Mm.
laugh at the inner critic, right? And then
Yeah.
shed another layer. It's like this spiral. Sometimes you spiral outward and inward, and then sometimes you're like ascending, and then all of a sudden you're descending. You're like, where am I going? I'm falling back into my patterns. But as long as you're conscious and do it, you're always going to be spiraling in and out, but deeper into yourself. And that is the
Yes.
work, I think. Deeper into your truest self to be free.
Yes. You've given us so many tools and things to think about. And if there is someone out there who is feeling really lost right now or really disconnected from their true self or, know where they would want to be in their evolution, what would you say to them?
Hmm. That's a great question. I would say you are enough. You
Mm.
are enough and you matter. When you think about it, we're all looking for these miracles. We're looking for the miraculous in those magical moments. And yet, the work is to see the miraculous here, yes, in the miracles, but also in the mundane, in the everyday. And because when we see ourselves, yes, we're humans, we're just doing the same things over and over, but we're actually miracles. We're walking miracles. Here, you and I are talking across states, seeing each other, feeling each other's resonance and energy. And then the listeners are hearing it from wherever they're at in the world, and we're connecting. Like that alone is already a miracle. Even in our individual bodies, our cells are working individually, but they're communicating together. I'm talking to you, but I'm also breathing and my heart is pumping. Like that is a miracle. And so if someone is feeling really lost, just coming back and putting your hands on your heart and deepening your breath and remembering that you are already worthy. There's nothing else you need to do. There's nothing else you need to fix or perform. Like just by you being here, you are chosen to be here at this time and place, and you matter.
Mm. So good. We need to hear that a lot more.
Yeah, it's a
Um,
daily reminder, right? It's the daily work.
yeah. What other tools do you have around just connecting to the sacred and especially being a mom and finding balance in your life?
Mhm.
You mentioned the locking yourself in the bathroom as the toddler was screaming, but I know now you've probably cultivated many ways to stay in that sacred connection. I'd love to hear.
Yes, yeah, I had a teacher who reminded me that, oftentimes the triggers are the sacred, is where we find the sacred. And I didn't
Mm,
like that. So I'm like,
mhm.
wait, because she said, it's really easy to find the sacred when we're still in meditation or we're in a beautiful space, right? Where it's really easy to find the beauty in the sunset or on a peaceful walk. It's much harder to find unconditional love when your partner's not pulling their weight, or unconditional love when your toddler's saying, "This pancake is yucky, mommy. You're the worst. It's like, okay, but that is that moment to find the sacred. And what I mean by sacred is the invitation to find that unconditional love within the other person. And it's tricky. It is tricky. But whenever I start to get really triggered, I ask myself, what is this moment teaching me? Because usually when I get triggered, I want to run away or I want to fix it really fast. Like if my kid's being a jerk, like I want to fix it really fast, or ignore it or do something else. But the invitation is like, how can I find the sacred here? And that might mean to put down what I'm doing, slow down, connect with them. It might mean that I'm too uptight and I need to find my own inner child and play with my kids. You know, it might mean like reading a book and giving them permission to like be quiet and also read in their space or draw. So those are those moments where it doesn't quite look like probably how I would want it to look. Like I would love to be doing yoga and meditating and like pulling my tarot cards and like talking to my spirit guides. That would be my ideal. And yet for all of us, we're really busy, we live full lives, and if we get so attached that we have to have that certain time, 30 minutes, hour, whatever it is, we're going to get really attached in those expectations. It's great to have that, right? If you could cultivate that time for yourself. I do. I usually have about 30 minutes to 45 minutes in the morning where I meditate, I pull my tarot cards, I journal, I call in guides. That is my daily practice. But sometimes I don't get it. And in those days, like, how else can I cultivate more of what I need? As a mom, I need quiet. That's what I need. And so driving, I don't turn on the radio. Every night I walk around the block without my phone, without anybody. And it's one block, so it's only a few minutes, but those little sacred moments of stillness for me are help me quiet the mind. About 3 times a day, I drop in and close my eyes and just scan my body from the top of the head to the feet and back from the feet to the head. And then that's like 30 seconds. So we can do it and we need to do it because the mind is very busy. Our world is very busy. So we need to kind of be more diligent about slowing down, tuning in, listening to the wisdom that's there.
Yes. Yeah. One of the ways that I'm bringing it into my world right now is uh, I love just sitting in the bed while my daughter falls asleep and I'll
Mm,
do my meditation there. And
yes, that's a good one.
yeah, it used to be that I would always fall asleep with her, but now that I'm sleeping better, I can just sit and do the meditation. And uh,
Hmm.
I love what you said though about finding the sacred in the triggers. That's not not what I would expect, and that's kind of the medicine we need sometimes. Um,
Yeah, it's hard because our immediate reaction is to run away or to fix it or control it, but I can say that, my 2.5 years of postpartum depression, I prolonged that suffering because I was resisting what is. I was resisting what life was giving to me at that moment. And if I had just stopped and listened to like what the message was there, I would I would be with it, right? And learn it faster instead of prolonging the suffering. And so that's why I feel like we tap into the sacred by being with whatever we're given and not just like rolling over, if you're being in a abusive situation or a harmful one, like, but it's being present. That's what I really mean, is being present to your circumstance, to your current stage of life, and seeing what life is trying to show you. And right there, as soon as you do that and bring awareness, like you're already in the sacred because you're getting out of the mind of the what ifs and the shoulds and the outlining the path and just meeting it as it is. And then you can take it from there, whether it's dropping into your breath or journaling or, you know, listening. It's really listening.
and I'd love to hear just what is happening in your life right now, what you're excited about, what your business, if there's, of course, the book just came out. You also have a podcast that I think could be really helpful for people. It's exactly what you were describing, the mindful pause. So
Yeah.
tell us what's happening in your world.
Yeah, things are shifting. We talked about it just briefly before we hopped on our session together. Sometimes it's important to take the pause. Our world is
Yeah.
so busy. We're on this treadmill. We think we have to keep doing, keep producing, and there is something sacred in the pause. When we pause and we let go of the attachment of doing, we can actually start being. So I've taken a pause on the podcast. It's actually going to be rebranded as Sacred Remembrance
Mm,
Podcast, and that will come up in a couple weeks. I'm also on Substack, loving Substack because I very wordy and can like
mhm,
really go in deep, and also just the deeper connections that are made there. So building that community on Substack is wonderful. And then in the fall, I have my Soul School program, which is these 5 self-love tools. So we take 5 months and deep dive into the tool. We'll have our temple calls and then also our teaching calls. So
mm,
more of like tuning into the sacred within, but also the next call will be on the tool itself.
mm.
Yeah.
Beautiful offerings.
Thank you.
And how old are your kids now? Because it seems like there was a kind of a rebirth that
Hmm.
happened in your
Yeah.
evolution.
Bodhi, he just turned 5. And then Hunter, she is 7.
Wow, you're out of the
Yeah.
caveman years.
I'm out of the caveman, still kind of caveman-y, but every once in a while. But it gets better. I always say like, when they're potty trained, that's a win. Like
Yeah.
you just turn the corner, and then when they can wipe their own butts, like hallelujah. And then they can read. And like Hunter's starting to read, and it was actually really cute. About 2 months ago, I was still doing revisions on this book, which that was not in my plan.
Mm,
And I was doing a lot of revisions, and I sat down and I was just like, oh, I have to do all these revisions. And I mean, literally everything was red. I had just gotten my book proof back. And she just was so cute. And she goes, well, good news. No one's going to see all those mistakes, when it comes out. And I was like, thank you, Hunter. That's a great perspective. And I just sat down and started doing my book, and she started writing her own book. And she was like, I
Oh,
want to be just like mommy. And she wrote 2 pages of her own book. And I'm like,
oh my
oh,
God.
this is what it is. We're modeling like how we want to be, and then they're learning from that. So yeah, it's been motherhood is such a big initiation. You shed everything that you work so hard to become.
Yeah.
All of that kind of goes away. And yet, if we can be in it, what I've learned is that we have a bigger capacity for love, a bigger heart, for more compassion, more unconditional love, more tenderness to be with ourselves and with each other, um, because we understand, like, it's no longer just about us. At least this is the lesson that I've learned. And if we cannot resist it, what motherhood is trying to show us, then we can move deeper into those lessons quicker and embody those
Mm,
lessons faster.
mm.
Yeah,
It's definitely been a um, spiritual initiation. And
very.
and
Still ongoing,
yeah. Yeah, I bet. I imagine every year there's new things that,
oh
yeah.
yeah, I have friends and clients who have teenagers and adult children, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, it doesn't ever stop, you know?
Yes.
It doesn't ever get stopped. But then you get to look back and like your story with your daughter, you get to see like, oh, this is working, you
Yeah.
know? Me holding space for her, to see her, to not fix her, judge her, you know, this is we're breaking generational patterns. And
Yes.
perhaps you didn't grow up that way, but as women, we hold, I think it goes back 7 or 9 years. Epigenetics says we have our DNA 7 to 9 years. So when you think about the fear that our grandmothers and great grandmothers had about speaking out or sharing their truth or taking up space, like no wonder we as women have that today. And it's like each generation we have a moment to like break that you
Mm,
know? And so you just being okay with your daughter's tantrum and letting her vent and come back, whoo, that's magic.
Mm-hmm.
She knows she is safe to express her feelings, that no matter what, like she is safe and
Yeah.
she is seen. And because she feels safe, she can come back and express that to you. That's huge. At
Yes.
4 years old, you know?
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah.
And actually, all the work I did for so many years, one-on-one healing with clients, mostly we were working with their inner child. And I
Oh, yeah.
realized, wow, I've been working with children for a very long time. And then
Yeah.
here I am getting to see it in real time that, oh, wow, you know, oh, she spilled the milk. I'm not going to scream like that. This is a moment that is completely re-patterning,
Hmm.
history and ancestries around like, oh, we all make mistakes sometimes. Let's clean it up. No big deal. And it's just, I just think about that in those moments where so many, blow ups could have happened
Hmm.
or just affecting our nervous systems. And I'm really excited to see where our children will be in 10, 20 years, what
And you'll see
from
it.
that
You'll start
place.
really seeing already, as she did that and was very mature emotionally on that. And then you'll start to see it later too, of like how they're helpful, and then not even like respectful of like you have to be respectful, but it's because they want to do it. They want to be capable or helpful or kind or whatever the values that you're modeling in your home, and you're like, oh, all of this work is working, you know? But it
Yes.
is a big spiritual initiation because oftentimes our children are direct portals into our deepest wounds. So
Yeah.
yes, like when they're triggering it, they're triggering a part of our inner child that probably wasn't allowed to be expressed. I share
Yeah.
this in my book. I'm an Asian American. Like, no way would I ever be able to say, this food is yucky, or like be loud and disrespectful. And yet I've got a daughter who's very feisty and outspoken and could be seen as stubborn and all the things. And, like it's very highly triggering to me. And yet I know also now that I can actually stay with it, that's the sacred invitation, is stay with it and learn from it. I can see, oh, she's actually mirroring parts of myself that I wasn't allowed to express, that wants to be expressed. That
Wow.
voice, that fire, I
Yeah.
had that fire too, but it was squashed. Not from
Wow.
like a place of meanness, just Asians, you have to be respectful, like you don't do that.
Yeah.
You're a good girl, you're obedient, you're always kind and respectful. Like that's something that in our culture is, a big deal. And so yeah, so it's interesting that they mirror these parts of ourselves that want to be expressed, and then the parts of ourselves that are wounded and want to be healed.
Yeah. Oh, that's
It's
beautiful
tough. It's
awareness.
tough
Yeah.
though. It's tough to be with. But
Yes.
when you are, you just grow, and again that spiral, you go deeper into who you already are, you know.
Yes. I love it. Well, I
Mm.
would love to close today with a short prayer. Is there any closing words you have for the people listening? Any final takeaways you want to leave people with?
Mm. Thank you for being here, first of all. And I hope that you can tune into your heart, perhaps even close your eyes and place one hand on your heart, gently breathing into your heart. And as you listen to this pattern of your heart, this rhythm, just helping you remember all that you are. I hope this just remembers all that you already are. Thank you.
Just bringing that into the heart, that heartbeat, connection, energy, connectedness. Boy, all these layers, these spirals of healing that has been able to happen through your lineage and through all the people that you're going to touch through this book. Just invite, everyone listening to bring any gems from today into their hearts and to carry that with them as they navigate this life and all the ups and downs that it brings. So may we find that deep connection within, that spaciousness, that higher source and inner wisdom that we can all connect to. Blessed be. Thank you, Audrey.
Thank you so much.
Thanks so much for taking the time to listen to this episode. If you liked it, share it with a friend or leave us a review on iTunes. And sign up for email updates at risingwomanleaders.com to be sure to receive all the new and inspiring content. Thanks again for being here. It's an honor to walk this path with you.